Hello everyone and welcome to Simple Therapist. In this video, I'm going to be going over 5 tips that I wish I knew going into the social work field. Now, a bit about myself, I am in fact a social work practitioner. I've been in the field for a little under 3 years, so I'm pretty new. And I feel like these tips will be very helpful for someone if they are emerging therapist or someone who is just starting to receive a caseload. I've worked with children with a series of psychiatric disorders, as well as behaviors that are at risk for hospitalization. I've also worked with the families and parents of those children as well. Now, these tips are going to be more applied than theory, catered more towards people who are actually working one-on-one or, directly with clients. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to leave a like and also comment a question about the social work field that I can answer. And with that said, let's get straight into the video. All right, tip number 1. Pause and think before responding. Now, as a young social worker, I wanted to present as if I had all of the answers. I wanted to prove myself to these families, to these clients, that I was capable of helping them with whatever their needs were. I can recall countless times in which these clients or these families or these parents would ask me questions, obviously with the intentions of receiving some sort of an answer. And I would feel pressure to rattle off all of these thoughts that were going on in my head because I was, a bit stressed and I didn't quite know the answer, but I wanted to give them something. So listen to this. Instead of feeling pressured to rattle off all of the thoughts that are going on inside of your mind, I want you to get into the habit of pausing and thinking before responding. Like actually. So for example, if a parent asks you a direct answer that you're not quite sure about on the spot, first off, preface with an admission saying, it's a good question. I'm not quite sure. Pause and think. And then go into the possibilities of where it could potentially be this. I would also have to keep this in mind. Pause for a few seconds and take your time unraveling that thought. Let's say a parent was to ask you, why does my child have ADHD? That's a very profound question. And honestly, you can admit that to the parent right off the rip and then pause and think. Well, there's a few things that come to mind that factor into the reason in which your child's been diagnosed with ADHD. Let's look at the presenting symptoms, and you can list those off. Take your time in making sure that the parent understands, as opposed to feeling rushed and feeling like you have to give this answer as quickly as possible to combat this imposter syndrome. So you can think of the presenting symptoms and see if the parent agrees. You can also speak about the genetic predisposition, go through the family history that ideally you've done some sort of assessment how Uncle Joey was diagnosed with ADHD when he was younger. So mention that potential genetic predisposition. Also get into the factors involving their environment. Let's say the child is homeschooled and there's not as much structure as, let's say, a more traditional school setting. And then end off by saying, for example, in this context, that there are many factors that are at play, and therefore it's hard to give a straightforward answer to that question. And make sure that the parent understands that. Tip number 2 works seamlessly off of tip number 1, and that's that it's okay to not know the answers. It's important to keep in mind that as a social worker, your job is not necessarily to be a fixer, to be fix-it-Felix, right? Now, of course, there are exceptions, right? So for example, let's say you were a case manager. Of course, if there's a local food bank that your client needs access to, make sure they understand that that resource is available in the community. Or if your client of 8 years old is being bullied at school, of course, help them seek the different solutions in order to mitigate that problem. Now, in a more therapeutic sense, I think clients tend to have the expectation that we are there to propose solutions. That is not your job. Your job is to act as a mirror for them. It is important to keep in mind that you, like myself, are new to the field and there's a lot to learn. Parents and clients respect the fact that you're able to say, listen, I don't have that answer at this moment in time, but I can speak to my supervisor and get back to you on that. I've heard countless times from clients and the families that I work with that they appreciate the transparency that I have as a young social worker. And while I may not have the answers 100% of the time, they know that I'm going to go to my supervisor, do some research, and come back the next week and we'll have a discussion about my findings, their findings, and it's a productive conversation. And through all of those means, you are building a strong dynamic between you, the social worker, and them, the client. Tip number 3, it's super simple, but I cannot stress it enough. Be prepared for supervision. There are so many reasons in which you want to be prepared for supervision. Let's get into them. For one, let's understand what's going on here. You are speaking to someone who has way more experience, who is in the position in which they can pretty much teach you. It's almost like a class, but much more one-on-one. You can ask all the questions in the world. Your supervisor likely has a wealth of information. They are in that position for a reason. So take advantage of it, not in the bad way, but in like a I want to learn type of way. That time, that hour and a half, 2 hours is designated for you to review your caseload and to ask the questions that are necessary. So when your clients ask you questions, make sure you are incorporating those into supervision so that you're not only advocating for them, but that you're learning more yourself. Your supervisor has worked in different settings. They worked in different organizations. They have a wealth of information, and make sure you're capitalizing on that. Make sure you're asking about their experiences. What would you do in this situation? Because I'll be honest, I'm sort of lost. It is important that you are being honest about the ethical dilemmas that you are experiencing in the field, because let's face it, there's going to be something that comes up within the first week, 2 weeks, first day that you are, in the field. And lastly, if you are not getting that quality supervision, if your supervisor is skipping on supervision for whatever reason, if you don't have that relationship that you want with them in which you can be honest and have those productive conversations, or you don't feel like it's the most efficient supervision in the world, be honest or speak to, their boss or speak to a coworker in a productive sense, not in that malintent, spreading drama. Like, you want to make sure you're advocating for yourself and getting the best quality supervision. Tip number 4, identify a self-care activity that you can do and don't let work cross that boundary. Now, when you enter the field, probably like myself, as a young, aspiring social worker or mental health practitioner, you're gonna wanna go above and beyond for your clients in all facets of the job. You're gonna want to complete paperwork, probably outside of your hours, just so it gets done. You're gonna want to help your coworkers when they ask, just being that staple keystone person for your employer. And while these are excellent traits, I'm telling you right now, you are susceptible to burnout. A methodical and steady approach to the race ultimately wins, not the sprinter. The moment you catch yourself saying, my day technically ends at 5, but I'm gonna work that extra hour to get this assignment done, or I'm gonna bring my laptop home so that I can get this assessment done over the weekend, you have entered the danger zone, my friend, and I've done it plenty of times. Now, of course, there are exceptions, but the problem here is that you're no longer compartmentalizing the different areas of your life. Work is now seeping into your free time, which can act as a catalyst for burnout. Be sure to keep that boundary clear and find a hobby. For me, it's boxing, it's video games, it's spending time with my friends. Make sure that you are abiding and upholding those things that are important to you, that you're passionate about outside of work, so that you do not experience an absolute crash out 6 months into your job. Tip number 5, be comfortable with the uncomfortable. Your clients are going to be complex, as we all are. That's just the nature of the job. That's just the fact of the matter. And therefore, they're going to be coming into your office with conflicting or confusing emotions that are hard to read. They're going to have bad days. They're going to experience something horrible before coming into your session. These things are going to happen. It could also be the case that you simply have not built enough rapport yet with that client or with that family, and therefore it's sort of like that awkward phase in which you're, trying to feel everything out the same way they are. Sometimes it's the age demographic where you're working with a teenager, or the circumstances in which they don't want to be participating in therapy or services, but their parents are making them. These variables will likely lead to sessions that are mute, that are awkward, and just straight up uncomfortable. This may come across as a surprise at first, and that's okay. Make sure you are assessing the situation. I know when I first experienced this, I would ask myself, am I doing something wrong? Am I a crappy practitioner for allowing this awkward silence to take place? And I'm here to say, embrace the silence. Embrace the silence. I constantly remind myself that there has to be some sort of buy-in and effort on the client's end to put their foot forward. And you could guide them along the way as much as you want to, but ultimately they have to make that critical decision. And if they're not ready, that's okay. Now, it's a big step to articulate how you're feeling. And if they're not able to articulate what's going on inside, then give them that space to pause and think and just sit in that environment. Feel free to prompt a few times in order to indicate that, hey, I am in fact interested in how you're feeling. I want to know what's going on, but I'm not going to force you, and that's okay. Just know that I'm here and I'm curious. Now, if that does not change the frequency of dialogue, then just sit in that space with them. Sit in that quiet space. Make it be a safe space. I want you to unwork that muscle memory that tells you quiet is not good. Someone has to fill that space. Sometimes that comes from operating in social settings in which someone needs to talk and you feel like it is your duty to do that. Just know that you do not have to fill that space when your client is not talking or having a bad day. So long as you are fostering a therapeutic environment that is comforting, that is inviting, you're doing the right thing. And those are my 5 tips. If you guys agree with them, disagree with them, would like to add on to what was mentioned, feel free to leave a comment as well. But thank you guys for listening and have a good one.